Hey, 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 welcome to the second week of webinars that inspire. I am Aditi Nirvan, a transformational mentor, a therapist, an artist, and an entrepreneur. And today's topic is called The Big B. That is, it's all about breakups and 11 ways to navigate this tricky terrain as gracefully as possible. So the past 4 months have been a sort of a do or die situation for many people in relationships, especially if you have a boyfriend, girlfriend relationship or a spousal relationship or a live-in partner and any kind of relationship which I call is the special love. And almost like, the reality show Big Boss or the Big Brother series, if you're in the UK, where you're forced to stay together with very little choice and there are human beings involved, there is a huge range of emotions and a huge list of wants. There will be drama. So I'm glad to know that for a lot of people who have had the opportunity to spend time with their loved ones, this has been a big blessing and it's given them tremendous time to spend with each other. They've been able to work out their differences and they found time with each other, which was earlier allocated to, maybe traveling to work, spending time at the office, with running behind the kids and having a crazy schedule, and they now feel much closer than ever. But for some, it has come to a point where it's sort of gone beyond repair and they know that it is time to part ways. And for still others, they're sort of on the fence. They're not quite sure which way they would want to go. This particular webinar is for these two last categories of people. It is about how to navigate this terrain if you've chosen to part ways, and also if you are fence sitting. So during any kind of breakup, there is always the sense of coming apart of oneself. And that becomes a great starting point for people to come for therapy and for healing. And they end up finding themselves over a period of time. So whenever there is a breakup, I kind of call it a tipping point of transformation. And the choice actually remains with you, what you wish to do during this time. But what does one do during a breakup with oneself? What constitutes as the right move? What constitutes as a wrong move, if there is one? And there is a sense of coming apart of oneself, which I refer to. And that really isn't coming apart of you. It's actually the coming apart of everything that you both created together and that you as a person have taken on from the other. So it's actually stuff that's supposed to leave you. So if you are feeling like you're falling apart, please have faith in this moment that it's actually you falling together in place for the first time in many years after this person is leaving your space or has left your space. So when I refer to, what's a right move or a wrong move, I don't think there's really a right move or a wrong move. I would say that there's probably something more like, is there a sane way and an insane way of handling this whole situation? So insanity would be, where you have to, it's like you would be pursuing, holding on to the whole thing, not letting go, although you have chosen to break apart. But there are so many elements that are involved in it which keep you together. It's about you holding on to all of that stuff, holding on to the memories, holding on to the emotional charge of those memories, and so many other things. And that can drive you completely nuts. You will never be able to find your own individual sense of self or sense of space if you continue to have that insanity. A sane way would be to ensure that whatever choice you make going henceforth should give you peace of mind, not happiness. The reason why I'm saying not happiness and peace of mind is very simple. It genuinely, only when you are truly at peace with what's happened, there is a sense of deep acceptance with what's happened, that you can actually move forward. Happiness comes in like heartbeats. It comes and then it's gone, and then it comes and it's gone, and it's very conditional to external environment. Peace is what you're able to find within you. It's personal to you, it belongs to you, it's in your own space, it comes truly from within. So I would say that try and choose the sane way instead of the insane way, and make choices that are going to give you a sense of peace. Uh, what does that peace mean? What does it feel like? I would say that where you feel like you're left wanting the least, meaning there's no more, I want it that way, I want that person, or I wish this was it, or you're not left wanting for anything. You're just completely fine with what is. That is the most peaceful way forward for you. And there will be some give some and get some with the other person for a short period of time during or after the breakup. Please remember that it's a very tough time. In fact, psychologists say that also a period which is very similar to grief or loss. It's like a death of something. So it isn't unusual for a person undergoing a breakup, separation, or divorce to feel like something has died, because it has. A relationship that you both created together has died. So if you feel like mourning, you feel like grieving, you feel a sense of loss, it's absolutely valid. It's absolutely correct. And please don't ever feel small or guilty for feeling that way. Please have patience with yourself and give yourself time. It's going to be a healing process. I know so many people who, having chosen the saner way of coming out of it, have still taken 2 to 3 years to feel a sense of themselves again. And please allow at least that much time internally, although your external world may look the same, but internally it takes a bit of time. No two people in a breakup handle it the same way. One is always hit harder and hit first, and then the other gets hit harder later. And we never know who is going to show up how. Yeah, so it all shows up in different ways. But in the long run, trust me, same way is the only way that works. Okay, great. So now let's take a look at what it is that you can do during this time. How do you actually navigate this? So there are 11 ways, like I have spoken about and you guys have seen in the promo so far. So the first one, which is very, very important, and this is based on love. This is a love relationship. Please know that you have loved this person. Um you will continue to love them. There is no way to unlove somebody. Um, Underneath all of that pain, that anger, the shame, the guilt, the blame, the regret, there are all of these. There's a tornado of emotions, there's a cyclone of emotions going on the surface that you seem to experience on a daily basis. Underneath all of that, there is still love. Yeah, you were together for a period of time. There is a reason why you chose to be with the other person. um, there is still something about them that you love and you care about. And this love and care over a period of time after a breakup becomes loving and caring. Yeah, long after you've split. So the love and care turns to loving and caring, meaning what? You may not feel the same intensity of emotions that you did before, but you will always reach out and be there for the person in the worst circumstances. I know you may feel at times that, oh my God, I never want to see this person again. Oh my God, I really wish I could just, clobber them, or I really do not like what they've done. And there's just so much of hateful emotions. Very hateful is a bit of a strong word, but very, very tempestuous feelings. Um, and I get that. I completely get it. I've personally been through it. Um, I know so many hundreds of clients who have been through it. Please trust me when I tell you that you need to give it time in order for it to move from love and care to loving and caring. All your healing has to occur on your relationship with them. Yeah, meaning it's the same way. It's the way to get more out of yourself over a period of time. And we're going to talk a little bit about more about how to get a sense of yourself. um, Please remember that in this first point, what the breakup has really done, it has merely triggered everything that has always been inside of you before you met this person, when you were with this person, and after the person has left. So there is nothing new that you're actually experiencing right now. All this person has done and this breakup has done is trigger it to come to the surface for you to experience and see. And we're going to see how you release that, which brings us to point number two. Please keep asking yourself this question with every choice you make. Like, for example, say you've been married an X number of years, okay, and you have kids, okay, and you have chosen to legally separate, and that you're going to be living in probably two separate houses. So a lot of people at this point ask me, yeah, but if it's a woman, she would probably say something like, no, 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 I want to have the kids with me. He doesn't know how to manage, and he's not going to be able to take care of them. Unka subah utke tiffin banana hai. I mean, translation to English for people living in the US and Canada right now, is that, I have to get up in the morning and prepare their food, I have to send them to school and da da da. And, he's not going to be able to do it. The father would probably think that, yeah, I'll learn how to do it. I'll keep somebody, or I'll have my mother or my sister or somebody in the house who look after that part of them. But I'm a father, I'm entitled to them too. And they both are right. Neither one of them is wrong. So how do you divide this up? Um, Please know that when it comes to this, there's no right way or wrong way of doing it. Again, there is a sane and an insane choice. An insane choice would be you depriving your children of the other parent. This is something I reiterate. However horrible they may be, however badly they may behave with you, please, please, please separate how the other is a parent to your child before you make a choice. They may be a terrible spouse to you, they may be a terrible lover to you, but are they a good parent? you know can they become a good parent? Will you allow them the chance to go and exercise their parental rights, their parental nurturing? Will you allow that person to become a father? Will you allow that person to become a mother? Will you please give them that opportunity? And please trust that your children will bring that out in them. It's not up to you. The presence of a child can make a tremendous amount of difference in a parent's life. And please trust that your child's innocence, the need for your child to be protected and cared for, is something that the parent will grow into. So the same choice would be to ask yourself, with every choice you make, am I being loving in this moment? Yeah. First, am I being loving with me? What is the most loving thing I can do for myself? Do I need some space? Do I need some time out? Do I need to cut communication for a while? If that's going to make me heal and feel better, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Am I being loving towards the other? Am I being loving towards the kids? And if there are any other family members who are deeply, deeply impacted by this separation, am I being loving towards them? But first is you. Am I being loving towards myself? Yeah. Uh, in a relationship, if you're not sure about what you want to do, the fence sitters I spoke about earlier, um, maybe then ask yourself, in this relationship, what's the most loving thing that I could do to myself? Is being with the other person loving for me, or is not being with the other person more loving towards me? So that should answer your question to get you off the fence about what you choose to do. If you do come to a conclusion that being with the other is more loving towards you in the long run, then be with the person. If it isn't being with the person, then please acknowledge that and make that choice. So the first point that we covered was that the love and care will become loving and caring, and let that come over a period of time. Point number two, like I said, am I being loving towards me? Am I being loving towards the other? That's the second question. The third and a very critical one is to acknowledge within you what has changed about the way you think about them and feel about the other. For example, you may have spent an X number of years together in this relationship with this person, maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 years, the 7 year itch, post the 7 year itch, maybe even 2 decades. It isn't unusual for a lot of people in their 40s and 50s to come to this point of time that they realize that, oh, I actually feel very, very differently about my spouse now or my partner now. It's very simple. You both are completely different people now compared to who you were when you first got together. So that's one. If neither one of you is the same person anymore, how do you expect that the relationship will remain the same? Over the years, you both have seen far deeper layers of each other. you do not like perhaps what you initially signed up for. Say, for example, if you're in your 40s and 50s, you don't like what you signed up for in your 20s and 30s. And forgive me for doing this, but in marketing terminology, it is known as buyer's remorse. Basically, when you buy a product or buy a service, you're very excited about it at the time of purchasing it, and you invest yourself in it. You invest your money in it, and then you start to purchase, you start to use it at home, and then you realize somewhere along the line that it's not what I signed up for. It's not really what I like. And this can happen in all relationships over a period of time. It is now, I may be stating the obvious, but you'll be surprised how many people do not acknowledge this. The reason they don't acknowledge this because they're holding on to a fantasy that it still could be something better. It still could be that fantasy that I have been having. I had a fairy tale marriage in my head, or had a fairy tale or a romantic movie style relationship in my head. And if I still put in more into this, I pour myself into this, if I cut off my arms, I cut off my legs, I cut off my ears, perhaps this person will have that with me. And if you haven't seen that in 10 years, it's very, very unlikely that you ever will. So please, my prayer to you and my invitation to you is, please acknowledge exactly where you stand in your relationship right now. Please acknowledge where your relationship is right now. Open your eyes up and see it very, very clearly. If you start to acknowledge all of this and be completely and vulnerably honest with yourself, what has changed over all these years? It becomes so much easier to make a choice. And this is to all the fence sitters that are out there. It's still not emotionally going to be a joyride for you, but when you really start to open your eyes and see things exactly for what they are, the choice making and the decision making becomes much easier. So let's move to the fourth point. Okay, so in this, we're going to take a dive into the emotions that are driving you apart from this person. And you have to try and find a way to release these. Um, Death as a process, separation, divorce, trauma, they all come under one of those very highly volatile emotional states. The reason why I'm saying this is not because I wish to label it, but it's simply because it requires a very, very different level of self care from you than anything else in the world ever will. It's a time of deep transformation, like literally down to your DNA levels. You're going to be changing the neural pathways in your head because you're going to rethink the way you are. You're going to rethink your life. You cannot be breaking apart from a relationship and not have that affect every other sphere of your life. It will spill over, which is why it's very often compared to the grieving of the death process. My invitation to you and my encouragement to you in this time is that please find either a therapist or a healer or a counselor, anyone that you feel comfortable with, and find a way to blow off the steam. uh, you needn't have to process everything every time, but you need a venting board. You need a sounding board. And please find a professional with whom you can do this. You can be very vulnerable with yourself and do it yourself, but sometimes you do need a sense that there's somebody else who's had your back. Speaking of vulnerability, the last week's webinar we covered how to be vulnerable with oneself. So if you would like to understand that process and you weren't there for that, I would recommend you visiting my website, www.adityanirvan.com, and signing up for the newsletters, and you will start to receive last week's webinar and the ones consecutively. So, getting back to the point, seek professional help in a sense that don't be ashamed of it, simply because there is nothing to be ashamed of. A lot of people feel that a breakup, separation, or divorce means the end of something, means that you feel like a failure in some area of your life. It isn't. It's simply a transitional period. And I know this. So, well, okay. So here's the thing. I got divorced in 2017. 2017, 2018. I was separated in 2015, 2016. So I spent a year and a half away from my spouse before we actually made the choice. And it was one of the most darkest moments in my life. And I'm able to speak about it this way simply because I discovered so much within myself. I discovered a whole gold mine, a whole diamond mine. And my creativity started pouring out during this time simply because I did exactly what I'm asking you to do. All of the points that I'm sharing with you today both come from professional and personal experience. So when I talk about something like catharsis or venting out, it's very critical. Why? Simply because unless you remove the top layer of this drama that's going on, you won't be able to dig down deeper to how much change is actually occurring within you. How are you transitioning? How are you changing? What choices are you making now? What choices would you like to make now that you weren't making earlier, that you couldn't make earlier? So you will not be able to come to these from a sane mind, from a peaceful mind, from a space of mindfulness, from a space of awareness, until that emotional layer has been taken out. So please, please find a sounding board for yourself. Yeah, preferably a professional one. My next point and the fifth point is going to be a very important one. Let me just have a sip of coffee. Okay. So this is something that I find, particularly in India, we have never been trained to do, we have never been taught to do, and we don't know how to do it. But it's actually the simplest thing in the world. Try and be alone for a while. Um, Relationships are wonderful. If you're anybody like me, um, I don't mind a good relationship because it allows me to get to the depths of intimacy with someone. They become a wonderful mirror to me. We can evolve together. And I am all about the evolving. And, I am a seeker like you. I want to know more. I want to have more. I want to have more of myself too. And I'd love to do that with somebody else. But I'm also a person who can very, very easily do that on her own. I've had periods and moments in my life where I've been completely alone and I have never been happier. So please, please be willing to be alone for a while. And I can't reiterate this enough. During a breakup or just after a breakup of any kind, avoid rebounds. Because rebounding is like cutting yourself in the first relationship and bleeding all over the next one. It's unfair to the other person, it's unfair to you, and you do not have time to dress your own wounds because in the next relationship, there are going to be new wounds created, and you're not physically ready, you're not emotionally ready, you're not spiritually ready for this. Um, Also, my main question to you here when I ask you to be alone for a while is, do you even know who you are now without this other person in your life, without that spouse or the partner that has left you? I had a client recently who she has just been through a separation. She moved out of the house. She moved out of her husband's marital home with his parents and all of that. And she's moved into her own apartment and she works. And during a little shopping spree when she had gone out, she goes to, this was all before the lockdown period. I think it was around Jan or February this year. She called me very, very frantically, crying on the phone. I can't make up my mind. I have these bunch of 15 clothes that are there in the trial room, and I'm looking at all of them, and I can't bring myself to wear them, and I'm having a breakdown. So I walked her through this very simple energetic process that I do for people who are feeling very emotionally full and who need to release the pressure inside. I took her through it for about 10 minutes, and then she felt much calmer. So I said, now that the emotional storm is over, what do you see when you see these clothes? Look at this entire rack of clothes in front of you. And would you be wearing these clothes at this stage of your life? And I know this is something over clothing, but trust me when I tell you that it's a transition period, meaning that everything transitions, even what you wear transitions. So I asked her if she would be wearing these clothes, and she said no, because this is stuff he wanted me to wear, or I know that I bought this kind of stuff because he loved seeing this on me. He told me I look very beautiful when I wear this. But this isn't me, and I don't know what is me. I said, okay, that's not a problem anymore. Put these back on the rack and go and choose those clothes you would choose if this man had never walked into your life? And she said, okay, that sounds like a very different energy. I said, okay, go play with it. Be playful about it. Don't take it so seriously. So she laughed a bit and then she went. And then later that evening, she messaged me some pictures of herself in new clothes. And I kept teasing her, the Empress's new clothes, you know. And it's so interesting to see that not just with her, I have, you know, men as clients who have changed their eating habits. They changed the foods they ate because they said, oh, my wife used to insist on me eating this because she thought this was good for my health, but I never really liked it. But I couldn't tell her to her face because, you know, she would prepare food for the whole family, and so on and so forth. And I've seen so many people's choices change. Okay. um, Take a look at this. This is a very interesting thing because, you know, I'm not saying that, oh, go out and shop. But if you are undergoing a breakup or a separation or divorce, be very, very aware of what different choices you can make right now, and make those, you know. What would you eat? What would you drink differently? What would you wear differently? What would you read differently? What would you watch differently? Ask yourself that and start to do those things. And I'll tell you the reason why, because these are the places where you start to feel more of yourself. You're bringing more of your energy into that activity. Yeah. Now you own that activity exclusively, where earlier that activity was co owned by you and the other person. So it was jointly shared that this is something that you both apparently liked, whether you did or not, but you made yourself like it. Now you can be absolutely authentic with yourself that, yes, I did like it because he or she wanted it and they loved doing this with me, so I did it. But now I want to do it because I want to do it, and there's nobody else in my space. And this is the reason why I'm asking you to be alone, is because this is the only way you will get a sense of your own space fully. Move to the choices in your life, you know, go into all the things, go out into the world and start looking at all of those things that you would do differently. When you start to choose this, then start to look at the bigger things in your life, like what kind of a body would I like to have now, and then start working towards it. Do I want to have more flexibility? Do I want to have more agile body? Do I want to have a body that dances beautifully? You know, is this the career that I still want to continue with? Is there something else I want to do? You know, do I want more money, or do I want to move to a more essentialist lifestyle, or do I want to be more of a minimalist? I just, you know, I just want one couch, one mattress in the house, and I'm done. Who are you now? You know, find that out. Go on the journey of exploring yourself in the same life that you're living. You don't need to make any external changes yet, but please get to know yourself again. And this is very, very critical. This is a massive healing process in itself. Okay. Next point, number 6. Center yourself and ask, what is this breakup and this relationship being over asking you to be now? What is this new version of you that is emerging? Like for me, one of the things that came out is that I became an entrepreneur and I became an artist, meaning I have paintings and I sell my paintings. I have a bunch of clients whom I customize paintings to. I energetically channel art for them and I sell it to them. So I'm commissioned for paintings. There are art galleries online now that are carrying my paintings. And all of this has occurred only in the last couple of years. And before that, I never even owned a paintbrush. I mean, forget about painting. It never existed. So all of this has happened because there is a new version of me that's coming through. Life is asking for something more out of me. Therefore, it has created this space next to me, which is empty, in order for me to start filling it with all the things that I can be, I can do, that I'm here to contribute for in this world. So if you want to truly know yourself, start asking, what is this next version out of me that's asking out of me? Okay. You will be surprised. Okay. All right. Then I would ask you, the next point would be point number 7. um, a lot of people tell you that, you know, when you have had a breakup, forgive and start practicing forgiveness. And there are lovely healing systems like Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian system, and so many others. There's a course in miracles that teaches you about forgiveness. Um, and I have never ever knocked these out. They're very, very useful. They're beautiful processes. I myself have used them. I've recommended to thousands of my clients. But um, one thing that I always tell people, there is a caveat to this, and the caveat or the condition applies over here is that do not rush into forgiveness. Do not prematurely forgive. Don't try too hard to forgive, because literally it is like putting cream on a pile of cow dung. And I know that's a disgusting example to give you, but it's the only visual one that seems to make sense. You have to get rid of the crap first. So you remember we spoke about venting out and having a sounding board. So please do that first. Unless you empty out, you cannot be real to what is present right now. Okay, you may not be in a very forgiving space right now, so then you need to acknowledge, hey, you know what, I am still pissed off, I am still angry, I don't want to forgive right now. I will come to it when I come to it, but I am not there yet. I can see it around the corner and I know that that's the next step, but I don't want to overreach and pull it here and not be real to myself and not be true to myself. Okay, only when I'm completely sick of my own drama will I get there. And please do your drama till you're sick and tired of hearing your own story. Okay? Narrate your story to yourself like every day, that this was what happened, this is what he or she did, this is how I feel, da 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 da. Record it every day and listen to your own voice till you get sick and tired of it. Because only when you've OD'd on it will you let it go. Okay, if you're left wanting for it, you're not going to let it go, and then forgiveness ain't happening. It's not happening. Forgiveness is always a state that you come to. It is not something that you can hammer into yourself. It is your natural state of being. Your natural state of being is forgiving, it's compassionate, it's kind, it's loving. These are all who you are naturally. And what you're going through right now is that person who is naturally forgiving, who has a whole lot of junk around them. And all you need to do is you need to clear that junk up so then you feel yourself. And that's all I'm saying. That's why don't rush into it. Okay. Please shift the focus fully to you for caring about what you want and how you want to get rid of it. Okay. What is the drama that you're going through and how you're going to come out of it. And only then will you begin to soften up a bit. The end residue of all of these changes and all of these transformations is then the real forgiveness, the one that you feel deeply from within, that one that makes you feel sane, the one that makes you feel peaceful, and that one that makes you feel truly empty. And empty meaning that there's no junk left anymore. Okay. And you don't feel like anybody is responsible for anything that has happened. It's all fine. It's all okay. Okay. Which brings us to the next point about taking responsibility. So, point number 8, keep checking from which level of consciousness you are operating from. Okay. Here you need to be really self aware. But we have spoken about being self aware in the earlier points. So, how do you become self aware? And please remember that in this particular point, it's probably going to require you to be way, way, way more courageous and vulnerable. Okay. That is what's going to be asked of you here. So, the first level of consciousness that we're going to talk about is that he or she is to blame for what has happened. This is our usual starting point, and where many people remain for years, that they are the reason for the breakup because they did this, they said this, da da da, that this breakup has happened. So you're continuing to blame them. Number two, second level of consciousness, I am to blame for what happened. A few work on themselves and they get to this point. So it takes a bit of courage to come to this level. And if you're there, congratulations, you're just getting free of a lot of junk. Number three, we both are to blame for what has happened. This is where you start to see forgiveness somewhere around the horizon. Okay. And you settle to this point maybe after a few months or even a few years of reflection that, hey, you know what? We both did this together. We both damaged ourselves. We both damaged each other, and we both screwed up the relationship. Okay. This is you taking responsibility again. Number five. Number four, this is a very big one. No one is to blame for what happened. It all just happened. It was meant to happen. I became this person because of it, and I am actually very, very grateful for it. I'm kind of there. I'm in the fourth one right now, and it's taken a lot of hard work. Okay. So the fifth one, I don't know if I'll ever get there, and I have personally never seen anyone get there, is that nothing has ever happened. Nothing happened. I was in a marriage. I'm now not in a marriage. I was in a relationship. I'm no longer in that relationship. That's it. Okay. It's just a bunch of thoughts and some nameless events that have happened. And I'd say you're probably enlightened if you've got to this stage. So these are the five levels of consciousness. I'll go to it again. He or she is to blame. I am to blame. We both are to blame. No one is to blame, and nothing has ever happened. Okay. Now we move to point number 9. Please do not, I repeat, please do not talk to too many people about what's happened in your life. Do not share it with too many people. Do not get different opinions. Do not ask people anything. Keep everything to yourself. Only maybe very key few people who you would consider in your innermost circle, who you've probably known for a long time, and you can implicitly trust and be vulnerable and intimate with, you can share your stuff with. There is no right or wrong way to do this. I reiterate that. And there is a sane and an insane way to do this. Because when you share with too many people, everyone is coming from what they or they wouldn't do from their own history. Like me, for example. Yeah. It's understand that they may be concerned and they may care about you. But what you could do is you can move through the emotions, you can get rid of the junk, you can begin your transition process, and you can give people what I call the highlights. Okay, you can convey the highlights once you have passed through that stage. So, for example, if you're going through the 5 stages of grief and you've come to the stage of, say, acceptance, you can tell them, "Hey, I was angry once upon a time. I was in denial once upon a time, but I'm okay now. I'm cool." Okay, you can share the highlights with them. Number 10, this is the most amazing experience you will have. Which one am I talking about? Your breakup. And I know I sound completely crazy when I do this, but trust me when I tell you this. I know I sound nuts, but having been through some really deep levels of work with this, some insane breakdowns and some heavy duty breakups on a personal level, and having seen all of that in very close quarters professionally, I credit each and every one of those breakups that has transformed me, and I have seen it with other people from deep within. Um, you don't need to suffer. Suffering is a choice. Okay. Breakups may not be your choice. Breakups may be inevitable. That is something that's supposed to happen in your life. But choosing to suffer is your choice. So remember that. And you can breeze through this if you want to, but hitting really deep points from within. Number 11, and the last one. Remember that you are a whole person when you were born. Okay. You had a relationship with so many people from the time that you were born till today. And in every one of those relationships, you gave up aspects of you in order to get love, in order to get attention, appreciation, acceptance, and perhaps to even avoid feeling certain things like rejection and abandonment. Whatever the reason may be, please fully acknowledge only to yourself that you have done this, that you are responsible, and you have made the choices. And I don't mean that in a way that, oh, you ought to feel guilty about it. No, but simply taking responsibility. Yes, I know I did this. I gave up this aspect of mine in order to get love from this person. And it's a mistake. Now I realize that that doesn't quite work for me, and I'm choosing not to do that in the next one. And it's really as simple as that. Okay, you don't need to create a whole lot of drama around it. So please acknowledge what you did and be grateful for your learning. If it's not a learning, then the lesson isn't done. It's really as simple as that. So remember that you are a whole person and you will remain a whole person. Breakups are some of the hardest things to hit you, that actually make you the most softest person around. The process is the same as dying, like I mentioned to you, but you come out of it a whole new person. Um, One of the beautiful things to walk away with is that this person came into your life, they touched your soul, they served your soul in some way. You learned so much from them. When they were terrible to you, you learned how not to be. And when they were good to you, you learned how to be. And they taught you about yourself. And we seek relationships simply because we desire deep connections, and we know in the heart of hearts that the other person is our mirror. And continue to keep that same hope in the next one. And I wish you all the best. I hope you guys use all of these 11 points that I've given you. And with that, we come to the end of my talking. I would love to open this up now for questions. If anybody has questions, you can raise your hand, and you can even put it on the chat. Meanwhile, I have a few questions that I have gotten from people. So I'd like to ask these here. So Shalini from Hyderabad has asked, do we really heal from rejection or do we just move on? Okay, so the feeling of rejection, in fact, is something that I'm going to talk about in the webinar next week, which is the 15th of August. It's called Gift of Rejection. So, Shalini, I recommend that you definitely come for that webinar, but I will still answer your question. The feeling of rejection is there in all of us from the time that we are kids, and almost all of us have it. And it doesn't flare up till someone triggers us and it takes over as a predominant feeling. So, Shalini, is it possible that you always had this sense of rejection within you? That you had it probably before you were with this person, that you had it while you were with this person, and it's just got triggered now after the person has left? And moving on is the second part that you've asked. Do we really heal from rejection or just move on? Moving on is a separate entity from feeling of rejection. You can move on from a person, but yet continue to have feelings of rejection. And you will find that it's not just this person who has triggered those feelings. There might have been somebody before that, and somebody before that, and somebody before that. And not just necessary in relationships. It could have happened at work. It could have happened financially. It could have happened in some other way. Rejection and moving on are completely separate entities. So you can move on, but you can still continue to feel rejected. And we will deal in the next webinar we will talk in the next webinar on how to deal with rejection. She's also asked, if there are emotions and scars in the body, how do you deal with it? So I would say that you probably need a little bit of physical body healing. If you can get someone to do that for you, like I mentioned earlier, that the emotional load often is what really troubles us. Therapy and healing would be the right way, because you do need a third party support over here. Okay, lovely. Gauri has asked, how do I energetically let go of the person and give myself a closure? Okay, so energetically letting go doesn't happen unless you energetically fully occupy yourself and your own space and your own life. And I have mentioned about this in the points before. If your life and your choices and decisions in your life, your opinions in your life are still being overshadowed by what this person wanted from you, their expectations, and somewhere in your space, you're still thinking about what they would think about what you're doing right now, you can't have that. You will never be able to energetically let go of the person. Even if the person is physically not there, they're still in your space. So you have to stop asking their opinion in your space. You have to stop thinking about what they're going to think about you in your space. Please stop acting like they're governing everything that's happening in your life. You're still keeping the space next to you warm for this person. You haven't quite let them go. You have to be the one who has to stop seeking their opinion in your own space. And you can do that only when you start to occupy your own space fully. So everything I spoke about in point number 5 and point number 6, I think, is what is this next version of your life asking you to be, and energetically letting go of the person. And this will start to then occur on its own. Start responding to that call of what life is asking from you to be. Start responding for that call where um, you know that there is another version of you, you know that there is your own opinions there. Start responding to all of that. Okay. And build your life, Gauri. Just build your life. Make changes in your food, your eating habits, discipline, body, career, education, lifestyle, friends, everything. Become yourself fully. Occupy all of those spaces only with your energy. Become 100% there. And that's when it will start to change. Yukta has asked, how do I enforce self-care as a priority? Okay, that's an interesting question and it's valid for a lot of people. Self-care starts to become a priority only when you've truly had enough of your own bullshit. Okay. When you've had your fill of toxicity, you've had your fill of over dependence, you have had your fill of your own boundaries being consistently crossed by another person. When you've had enough, period, then there is a need for withdrawal into your own space from the other person that you're in a relationship or were in a relationship with. And you don't feel guilty about it anymore for having to withdraw. That is where self care can come in, because that's where you genuinely go into a self preservation mode. Okay. Um, you want to be available for others constantly. You want to be there for others. You cannot not be available, because then that makes you feel guilty. If you continue to feel that way, then self care doesn't quite kick in. But remember that you're not shutting the door on anybody else when you do self care. It's like, okay, so say for example, you have some people coming home. Don't you kind of spruce up your house? Like you clean it up, you do your housekeeping, and you make sure the house looks good before you let anybody else into your house. So self care is exactly that. You are housekeeping within, in your mind, in your heart, in your body. You're doing your cleanup. And when you do your own cleanup, it's so easy to let somebody else in. Okay. So think of self care like housekeeping. Okay. I know it's a weird example, but I hope you guys are getting it. Manjit has asked if there is a right time to bring up a conversation about separation or divorce. No, there is no right time. There's nothing like that. There is no standard template or guidebook suggestion on when is the right time to talk about it. But what you can perhaps do is ask the other for a time when you wish to discuss something that you are going through and you wish to share about it, and then start to take responsibility with what you feel, what you are going through about the relationship, and how it's not working for you, and then move the conversation on from there. I hope that helps you. Uh, Manjeet has also asked how to talk to kids about it. It really depends on how old your children are. If they're very small, if they're very young, it's much easier to tell them that there is a new arrangement. I told my son that I gave him an example that, when he goes out and plays with his friends, how some friends he doesn't really want to be friends with anymore, because a lot has happened between the two of them, and he doesn't feel the same way about them anymore. He doesn't feel like hanging out with them anymore. He just doesn't feel it. And kids understand energy. They get it. They mostly don't have a reason why. They just know when something is done. So I use that as an example, and I shared with him that me and your father don't feel that way anymore. We don't feel like we want to hang out with each other. We don't feel like sharing things with each other. We're just not in the same place. We don't see that we are best friends anymore. And he understood, and he was 6 years old. So he got it at that age. So I think you need to understand at what age the kids are and get to that level and explain it to them. I don't know how old your children are or whoever it is that you're talking about. So I can't tell you exactly what I would do. So some clarity on you would help. I think Manjeet has put stuff here. All this is the emotional stuff that we have to go through. How does one shift from the emotions to the practical steps? Because the emotions themselves feel so overwhelming. Thinking and practical seems very tough. I completely agree with that, which is why you need to do some heavy duty catharsis. Uh, that's the word. So catharsis is the word, meaning you need to vent out the emotion. It's very important for you to do that. If you need to rant every day for an hour to yourself, then do it. Okay. Um, because it's an energy that needs a place to go. And if you don't do it, you're not going to see the practical side. You're just not going to be able to see it. It's not going to come up into your vision. It's only when you're able to handle the emotional overload that you'll get to see, oh, this seems like the next logical, sane step for me to take. And you will take it. Manjeet has also asked how to deal with the financial issues. Um, I am not sure what you mean by financial issues, because it can mean 20 different things. So I'm not sure which one you're referring to. Do you mean financial debt? Or how do you earn for yourself? Or are you referring to alimony, child support? Or is it about paying each other off? It's too generic a question. So if you can be specific on the chat or ask me, then I can answer that. Tasneem has said, sorry, Tasneem has asked me to put a male perspective. Honestly, I've never spoken or written anything from a male or female perspective. It's always been a human being's perspective, and that applies to this webinar here as well today. There are human beings who react differently, not because they are male or female when it comes to breakup. It's just who they are as a person. Both men and women hurt equally. They hurt each other equally. They struggle equally. They go through their own stages of grief equally. They go through the whole emotional turmoil equally, whether they show you or they don't show you. So unless there's something specific you're referring to, I'd like to hear that. Dr. Prerna has asked, how do you unlove? Wow. How do you unlove? You can't really unlove, because if you love and care, like I mentioned in the first point, it will become loving and caring later. Uh, and it happens only when you have spent some time away from the person, you've put some distance between the two of you. Uh, but you will never stop caring. You can't uncare and unlove. Your priorities will change, meaning that the person is no longer a priority for you, that relationship is no longer a priority for you. And over a period of time, it starts to become a fading memory, what you used to feel. So allow for passage of time. Time is one of the best healers, but it's also one of the greatest nurturers of insanity. So please be aware of what you're carrying over a period of time. If you're determined to unlove, then I would say dive a little deeper into why you want to do that. Okay. And yeah, that's the questions that people have sent in. Manjit has rectified alimony and child support is what she was asking about. Okay. So if it's alimony and child support, you'll have to discuss it. I'll tell you something. When you're in a divorce, all bets are off. The gloves are off. It feels like a war zone. It feels like you're negotiating with an army general. You feel very emotionally strange. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing, but it's something you must go through because it gives you a whole different dimension and perspective which you never had before as a human being. Uh, I would encourage that you speak to the person directly and you say that, hey, uh, given that we are getting a divorce, there is a certain amount of money that I require every month, and that you need to pay for children as well. And I'd like to discuss that with you. And if you find that it's very, very difficult for you to do that, have a mediator do it for you. Have someone that you both are okay with, a neutral person, to have that conversation with both of you. So yeah, that's my suggestion. Okay, guys, we have another few minutes to go. Does anyone have any questions? Would you like to come up on video or audio and ask me something? Hang on a second. Weber was asked, how do I truly occupy my space fully? I think I don't know the how of it. So Weber, like I said, start to make choices that you would make for yourself in your daily life. What are the movies you would love to watch because it's you and there's nobody else to make that choice with you? What are the clothes you would wear because you want to wear them and not because you need to impress somebody or you need to impress that particular person? What is the choice of career you would have because it gives you joy and not because the other person would approve of it if you chose it? So the other person's opinion isn't being counted in your life and isn't being counted in your space anymore. You are the only one you need to impress. You are the only one you need to be honest with. You are the only one that you need love and approval and attention from. There is nobody else. And when you start to do that, that's how you will start to occupy your space fully. That's the how of it. I really hope that answers your question. I know you will bug me about this, Vaibhav. I know you. All right, guys. Anyone else who has questions? Because if there isn't one, then we can end it. And let me plug in my next week's webinar right away. It's the 15th of August, and I mentioned it earlier. It's the gift of rejection. Yes, being rejected can be a gift. I know it sounds strange, but it can actually give you everything that you're ever looking for from the other person. So from Monday, I think, you can start registering for next week's webinar. And if you've particularly been through a breakup, a separation, or a divorce, the feeling of being a failure or feeling of rejection can be very, very loud in one's own space. So I would encourage you, I would invite you to join me, and please send in your questions beforehand. And if there are no more questions today, I think we will give this a rest for today. Uh, okay. Yep. Oh, there's a message. Thank you for this webinar. Thank you for being the contribution. Lots of love. Thank you so much, Gauri. And thank you guys for being there. Thank you for sending all of your questions in. I really enjoyed it today. And have a lovely weekend with your family. And please go over this webinar because the recording will be sent to you, especially the 11 points. Please go over it. If you need to write them down and start to practice, reach out to me if you have any questions or any difficulties. I'm right here, and I will see you next week. I will see you. Bye bye.
Thank